I'm Dwayne Brown. The votes are in, but not all the results are final yet. Tonight, we look at who won, who lost, and who's still waiting. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Hi, good evening. Thanks for joining us. It was a big election night for Republicans across the country, taking control of the House and Senate and winning a lot of governor's races. But there's one race they're still watching right here in San Diego County. That's the very tight race between Democratic Congressman Scott Peters and his Republican challenger Carl DeMaio in the 52nd District. Both are former city council members in a congressional race that's been too close to call. DeMaio's been holding a very narrow lead, just 752 votes when all the precincts were in, but the registrar is still counting absentee and provisional ballots tonight. In fact, there could be more than 40,000 of those for the district. We expect to have updated numbers sometime soon. There was a lot of optimism in the DeMaio camp as early returns came in last night. At a news conference this morning, DeMaio reiterated that belief and criticized his opponent and the media over coverage of sexual harassment claims made against him in the final days of the campaign.
And it was frustrating during this campaign that our opponents chose to drag the dialogue from those important issues to a low point. That did not serve San Diego well. It doesn't serve our democracy well.
DeMaio says what's important now is a thorough and proper completion of the election. He says his campaign has hired a team of observers to monitor the counting process. Scott Peters' campaign has been quiet today, but last night Peters was cautiously optimistic.
Suffice it to say that, the way the registration is and the way early voting goes, we're really happy to be where we are. And we're very, very optimistic.
The registrar says we may not see actually a final tally in the 52nd District until next week. Now, in the meantime, our media partner, iNewsSource, has built an interactive map of results for every precinct in the 52nd District. Viewers can find their precinct by entering their address. You can find the map at inewssource.org/voting. No surprises in the county's other congressional races. Republicans Darrell Issa and Duncan Hunter held their seats, and so did Democrats Juan Vargas and Susan Davis. It was a big night for Republicans across the country and right here in San Diego. The election of Chris Cate to San Diego City Council breaks the veto-proof Democratic majority. Peggy Pico talked with him earlier.
Chris Cate is the newly elected city councilman for District 6. And congratulations, Chris, and welcome to Evening Edition.
Thank you for having me. Thank you very much.
Now, your opponent, Carol Kim, has said one of the deciding factors for your win is that you outspent her in the campaign 4-1. Do you think that's one of the deciding factors?
No, not at all. I think one of the issues that allowed us to win yesterday was our ability to go out and talk to tens of thousands of voters. We've been walking and talking to voters for the past 18 months. We have a great team of volunteers and others who helped us out and got the vote out. And I think our message as well, too, and the priorities that we set forth and my experience, I think that message resonated with voters.
As a Republican, your win, of course, removes the veto-proof Democrats on the city council. But last night, Todd Gloria told us that he didn't think that was a big deal. He says that the city council and the mayor often agree on votes and often work together. Do you think it'll have an impact?
Yeah. I agree with what Todd said, Council President Gloria said. I think for 90% of the issues, they're unanimous. They're very mundane issues that don't get a lot of attraction, but on those very important issues where there's a necessity for debate and dialogue, I think that balance of power on the council allows for that. And I think that's what the residents wanted. That's the feedback that we heard from folks, is that they want that balance. They want their issues to be heard, their priorities to be heard when those difficult decisions do occur.
What are your top priorities when you get into office?
For the past 18 months, we talked about police potholes and jobs, making sure that we're recruiting and retaining quality police officers. We're implementing reforms and reinvesting savings in our streets and our sidewalks and our facilities, and making sure that small business and entrepreneurs in our district have the ability to create jobs, locate here, expand here, especially because the district is a very small business-oriented district.
And you said potholes?
Yes,
So
streets, infrastructure, exactly. I mean, that's the big thing. And anybody can drive down the streets of Mira Mesa or Claremont and they can see what I'm talking about.
Oh, right. Mayor Faulkner actually campaigned on your behalf rather enthusiastically. In what cases would you oppose the mayor, go against his position, or other Republicans on the council?
It's hard to forecast what that is, but I like to take into account that I have a policy background and I'm going to be presenting a lot of ideas and initiatives, things that we can think differently on. I doubt that everyone's going to agree with all of us on all these issues, so it's hard to forecast, but I am my own person. I have my own background, I have my own experiences, and I think I'm going to use that to benefit the residents of District 6.
All right, City Councilman Chris Cate, thanks again.
Thank you for having me.
And last night we talked with Kate's opponent, Carol Kim, downtown at Golden Hall. She told us she leaves behind a group that knows how to organize.
Hopefully what we'll be doing is continuing to do that work in order to increase civic engagement and increase people's awareness and participation in our process.
Peggy Pico takes a closer look at voter turnout Tuesday and lessons learned from last night's election.
Here with a closer look at the implications of this election is my guest, Carl Luna, political science professor at Mesa College. And Carl, what a night. We still don't know who won the highly contested 52nd District Congressional seat. Why do you think this race is so tight and so important?
The race is tight because voters are a bit undecided about who to shoot for all the problems we have with the current Congress. The Republicans for obstruction, the Democrats for incompetence. Neither candidate had a record in the Congress to run on, so it was running against the national narrative, the president and the rest. And for a lot of voters, it was kind of an election. They just did not see a huge relevance. And $10 million spent, its primary purpose was to keep people from voting.
We're going to come back to that, but who do you think, or I should ask you, when do you think we'll know who won, and do you think the person who didn't win will actually contest this, the counting of the ballots?
Unless it's really close and there's some reason to expect malfeasance, usually you take your money, you pays your chances, and typically whoever wins, when somebody else contests, they seldom win. When we'll know, it could be a matter of days, could be a week or two. As long as they have it figured out by sometime around January of 2015, then we're all good to go.
Do you think the last-minute allegations against Carl DeMaio had any impact whatsoever?
Normally, I would say no, because usually voters have their mind set by this point. But if it comes down to double-digit ballots, anything could have impacted it, including if it was raining or not.
Mm-hmm. What surprised you about this election?
For the 52nd District?
Sure.
Yeah, the huge amounts of money spent and the limited impact it seemed to have in engaging voters. You spent $10 million, and I was surprised. I looked it up to see how that ranked. Do you know that wasn't even in the top 10 for nationwide for House races? You had a House race in Florida that went for like $20 million. We're spending senatorial levels at the House level, presidential levels at the Senate levels. Who knows what we'll spend at the presidential? Well,
now, voter turnout was very low as predicted, as you predicted, and others around 32 to 36%. Specifically, why do you think the voter turnout was so low during this midterm election?
They're always lower in the midterm than in the general because people like to go for the star attraction. They like the top of the ticket when the president's on the race. It was lower than normal, which is probably the new normal because voters, a lot in the middle, are not seeing any advantage to either party. The typical person in America is not living better today than they were in 2008. So you say, what's the point? Nobody's going to help me, you stay home. And then you discover no one is going to help you because you stayed home.
So that coming back to the campaign money, you were saying that the campaign money was to basically target the middle voters who were undecided, or
drive them out of the race, because you never ask a question as a lawyer you don't know the answer to. You don't invite somebody to vote unless you know the vote. You know your base is how it's going to vote. If you invite a lot of indeterminate voters in, you throw something unmanageable into the campaign. Negative ads make moderates, make independents stay home
and not vote. Now, Republican Chris Cate, who won the District 6 election, he basically unseats the veto power of the city council. Todd Gloria and Chris Cate himself told me that basically that, you know, it's not a big deal. We all do this together. There's a lot of unanimous decisions. You disagree with that?
Well, it's unanimous right up to the point it's not. As Todd Gloria said, 90% of what they do, there's no controversy. It's in that last 10% that major decisions like minimum wage are made. The fact that you got rid of the mayoral veto-proof majority is probably a good thing, because that wasn't the product of an electoral outcome. It was the product of appointment when Mayor Faulkner became mayor and left his council seat. If either party can win 6 seats in an outright election, then Godspeed to them to have the veto override.
All right, political science professor Carl Luna, thanks so much.
Thank you.
California Governor Jerry Brown made history with his re-election last night. He's the only person to get 4 terms as governor, and he's also the oldest governor in the country. He offered a bit of historical perspective on the election.
California is working together. It's true we're a strongly Democratic majority, but the enthusiasm with which legislators such as Jim Nielsen and others have joined in the support of the water bond, with habitat investments, with efforts supporting low-income communities and their need for water, as well as storage, I think show great promise that we can do good things going forward. So, yeah, the rest of the country is going its own way. But these elections, they come and they go. I think Clinton lost the Congress, and he was able to still be effective. So I think the president has the same opportunity.
Brown says his focus for his final term will be on climate change, high-speed rail, and saving money. The governor spent very little time campaigning for himself, but a lot of time campaigning for Proposition 1, and it paid off. Voters passed the $7.5 billion water bond. They also passed Prop 2, the Rainy Day Fund measure. It requires California to save 1.5% of annual revenue, building a reserve for economic troubles. In response to that vote, Standard & Poor's today raised California's credit rating from A to A+, but we still have the 3rd worst credit rating of any state in the nation. Last night, voters passed Proposition 47. It reduces a number of nonviolent felony crimes to misdemeanors and lets prisoners serving time for those felonies ask for a resentencing. San Diego's retired police chief co-authored Prop 47 and spoke with Peggy earlier.
Retired San Diego Police Chief William Lansdowne, welcome back.
Thank you, Peg. It's always a pleasure to be here.
Good to have you. Now, remind us of what Prop 47 actually changes.
What Prop 47 does is it's going to bring an end to prison overcrowding. It's going to take the money saved from that and invest in treatment for people with mental illness and drug addiction. It's going to put money into the schools so kids can stay in school and not drop out of school. And it's going to put money into victim treatment.
And specifically from downgrading some felonies to misdemeanors?
Yeah, these are currently wobblers. There's 6 of them, like petty theft, possession of stolen property, or personal use of drugs. It downgrades those to misdemeanors, and it gives county time and treatment.
How much money do you think will be saved in this, and who will be overseeing how that money's spent?
The original assessment by the state is about $250 million a year over a 5-year window. That's $1.2 billion coming back to treatment in schools. And it'll be overseen by the Sacramento, the state of California.
California voters showed overwhelmingly that they supported this measure, but opponents called it soft on crime, including, the current police chief, Shelley Zimmerman. She opposed the measure. So why do you think voters' attitudes have actually changed?
Well, it's very clear that they see what it's costing us. It's a $10 billion interest process for the prisons. It's $62,000 a year for each person. They very much want to change, and they want to see treatment. And I think many of the people, because we knocked on doors and did phone banks, have relatives and they have friends who have been involved in addiction problems with drugs and alcohol, and they want treatment. They don't want incarceration.
When will this begin, and when will people actually start getting out of prison?
It's going to take a while to set it all up. It's effective immediately, but each person has to apply that wants to be reassessed. A judge can make an independent decision if they can get out. If they have a violent history, certainly they can't, for murder, rape, or sex crimes with kids. But if they do get out, it would probably be over the next 7 months or so, and most of them are ready to come out as they sit, whether this takes place or not.
All right, retired Police Chief William Lansdowne, thanks for the update.
Oh, very much, Peg. And thank you for having me very much. I'm happy with the community because this is their voice.
Not all propositions were approved by voters. They rejected Prop 45. It would have given the state insurance commissioner the ability to reject excessive rate hikes. Insurance companies and even the state insurance exchange fought against that measure. Voters also said no to Prop 46. It would have raised caps in malpractice awards and required random drug testing for doctors. Opponents said it would raise health care costs. Also rejected Proposition 48 about a gaming compact for a tribe near Fresno. It would have let them build a casino off reservation land. Other tribes campaigned against it. This is the first time California voters said no to an Indian gaming initiative. Escondido Mayor Sam Abed defeated his challenger Olga Diaz last night with 60% of the vote. He joins us now from our North County Bureau. Well, Mayor Abed, you've won a second term. Why do you think Escondido voters chose to re-elect you?
I think voters have overwhelmingly supported our policies. We have had a major turnaround of the city financially and economically. The last 4 years, we have attracted $500 million of businesses to Escondido, and we had a net gain of 500 businesses the last 4 years, creating over 1,000 new jobs in Escondido. We have created a good business environment, a business-friendly city. And also on the financial side, we have turned the city around. We had $16 million deficit 4 years before I was elected. We turned it into $8 million surplus, a swing of $24 million. And we did it through two ways. One is we increased government efficiency and we cut down the government size. And the other half was generated by the sales tax revenues from the private sector. So that gave Escondido an AA- bond rating that has been upgraded by the Standard & Poor's. So that's a huge financial turnaround of the city. And I believe people are happy with the financial turnaround, with the economic growth, and also we have reduced crime 17% the last 4 years. So I think people support our policies. 68% of Escondido residents support the mayor's job and the council majority. And also that was a clear rejection of the divisiveness and polarization of my opponent that really focus on racial issues. We have been inclusive in our city. My goal as an immigrant myself is to provide every resident in Escondido the American dream.
Let me quickly ask you this, because I know you didn't necessarily support Measure H. It failed again. It would have allowed hundreds of, or rather failed, it would have allowed hundreds of homes to be built on that old golf course. But the city still faces a lawsuit from the developer. Sure. If you could quickly, what's next for the city in regards to this?
Well, first, we have to find a solution for that. I believe the 430 homes is way too many homes. The 110 acres have been designated as an open space to mitigate the density we have at the country club neighborhood. So we believe, we have had several meetings with the owner, and we believe we can have a compromise. The compromise is to have a more balanced project, less homes, more amenities, more open space, particularly to those homes on the fairway, because they have property rights as well. Now, my goal is to sit down with the developer and have a compromise project that will be a win-win situation for the city and for the developer, and then the lawsuit will go away.
And my final question, quickly, hopefully. Measure G, the Charter Cities Amendment that failed for a second time last night, second time in 2 years, despite making some changes to the proposal. Is it time to call it quits on turning Escondido into a charter city?
I think the timing was not really perfect, because right now prevailing wages have been mitigated between many cities and the state. And I think that has been some confusion between the city and of Bell that have filed bankruptcy. So a lot of cities have financial problems, and in voters' mind that they did not understand the difference. So yes, charter city is good for our government, because for Escondido, because it gives us more home rule and eventually will eliminate the prevailing wages, saving taxpayers 20% on construction projects. So
sounds like you're going to continue to push for this.
When the litigation is done, when we sort out these issues between the cities that they are banned from receiving money from the state, I think at the right time we'll probably think about it again.
Escondido Mayor Sam Abed, congratulations and thanks.
Thank you very much.
As you heard, neighbors in the North County struck down a big development, voting no on Proposition H by a huge margin. It would have allowed the owner of the former Escondido Country Club golf course to build hundreds of homes on that site. Peggy Pico tells us why this fight is far from over.
Joining me now is Jason Rowe, a proponent for the Yes on Proposition H campaign. And Jason, Escondido voters struck down the housing development overwhelmingly, 61 to 39% for this golf course. So why isn't this the end of the issue?
Well, it isn't the end of the issue because we're in the courts right now with a takings claim against the city. What the city did here was take Mr. Schlesinger's property rights for a piece of property that he bought zoned for 600 residential homes and turned it into permanent open space, thus stripping the value of the land. So he's filed a suit against the city that if the court rules in his favor will restore his property rights and or force the city to compensate him for the highest, best use of the property.
So Michael Schlesinger, the developer, has a lawsuit now against the city. How much is that lawsuit for?
There's not a figure. The courts would determine what the value is. Typically in a takings case, the court will determine what the highest, best use of that property is. So in this case, what would that property be worth if 600 homes were built on it? That would be the value that they would typically assess, not the value of the property as it sits there today. So that'll be up to the courts.
Now, Schlesinger has actually said that if he wins this lawsuit, it could bankrupt the city of Escondido. Is that true?
Well, by our estimation, 600 homes built out on that property is worth about $100 million, which the city would then have to compensate him. The city's general fund is $75 million. So when Michael says that, it's not intended to be a threat. It's intended to be kind of a reality check of this is the situation that the city council has put the taxpayers of that city in. And one of the reasons that we ran this initiative was to provide an out so that the court ruling didn't have to occur. We put together what we think is to be a very fair compromise that would get the city out of a problem that they visited upon themselves.
Do you think that backfired in this campaign, that people were kind of, hey, you're suing the city and that's going to affect us? Do you think that's maybe one reason why?
I think it's part of the general narrative of the entire campaign. There are some people that were very passionate on the other side. I think we're a little fast and loose with the facts throughout the course of this, before there was a campaign even. And I think, they did everything they could to try to demonize and vilify Michael before he even proposed a development project.
Is there anything else besides the lawsuit that might happen on this? And if not, when will this lawsuit, do you think, be settled?
Well, I think the lawsuit should be settled in the next year. The problem that the city's done now is they've taken a citizen-led initiative and made it city law. The only way to undo that is by citizen-led initiative, which means we would have to run another ballot initiative. And I don't think, given the NIMBYism of Escondido and the anti-growth sentiment there, that even if the entire city council endorsed this, it would ever pass. That's the problem that we've got to contend with.
Well, we will definitely follow up on this story. Jason Rowe, thanks very much.
Thanks for having me.
There will be a change at City Hall in La Mesa. Longtime Mayor Art Madrid was defeated by Councilman Mark Arapastathis. Madrid served 6 consecutive terms as mayor. Councilwoman Mary Salas will be the new mayor of Chula Vista in the South Bay. Salas defeated Jerry Rinden, a former Chula Vista Chamber of Commerce president. She will replace Mayor Cheryl Cox, whose term ended after 8 years. And Encinitas voters elected a mayor for the first time. In the past, the post was actually appointed by City Council. Republican Kristen Gasper is keeping the mayor's gavel there. South Bay voters cleaned house in the Sweetwater Union High School District, electing newcomers to all 5 board seats. This follows a pay-to-play scandal in the district, resulting in convictions for many of the former school board trustees. And Tom Torlakson will stay on as state school superintendent after a tough race against fellow Democrat Marshall Tuck. After weeks of nasty campaigning in many races, we've got some good sportsmanship to share tonight from social media. A Twitter exchange between Ron Nearing and Gavin Newsom. Nearing, of course, is from San Diego and lost his bid to replace Newsom as California's lieutenant governor. Ballots are still being counted, of course, here in San Diego. We are keeping the numbers updated online. You can check them out at kpbs.org/election. Let's look at some non-election news around the county tonight. A Superior Court judge is indicating he'll reject a lawsuit over San Diego's $120 million infrastructure bond. An open government group questioned the legality of the financing method. The money will go toward fixing streets and building libraries, among other things. A North County tribe is launching an internet gambling operation in New Jersey. The Pala Band of Mission Indians already runs a casino on its reservation here. The new gambling site will only be able to take bets from folks in New Jersey, but the tribe hopes to have internet gambling in this state someday. And state water managers say California's conservation rate dropped a little in September to 10.3%. That report says some of the biggest water users were in Rancho Santa Fe, Fairbanks Ranch, and Solana Beach. We have a red flag warning in effect for our valley and mountain areas tonight. Low humidity, high winds will make for dangerous fire weather, and there was another small brush fire at Camp Pendleton today. Firefighters kept it to less than half an acre. Coastal temperatures expected in the upper 80s tomorrow, then cooling down for the weekend. 80s for the inland valleys as well. Red flag warning is up through tomorrow. Mountain temperatures mostly in the upper 60s tomorrow, then a few degrees warmer as we head towards the weekend. 80s with plenty of sun in the desert. Tonight's stories are online at kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a good night.